I just wanted to bring up the video we watched of the man being killed while looking for his relatives. And the group that I'm involved in was part of trying to bring over one of the witnesses from Gaza who witnessed that murder. And we were a grassroots solidarity group, and he was denied a visa by the British government. And he's still trying to come. He wants to come to speak about his experience and to try and campaign for justice in this one case. So if there's any organisations, legal organisations, and particularly organisations which are viewed in a positive way by the British government, then he would benefit from supporting getting a visa to come to the UK. So if anyone knows an organisation like that, then you speak to me today. So my name's Tom. I'm part of the Corporate Watch Collective, and Corporate Watch is a workers' cooperative of anti-capitalists who analyse and research corporations, corporate power, and capitalism with the desire to create information for action for campaigners for social change. And my role is to work on tracking corporate complicity in the occupation of Palestine. And I've been working at Corporate Watch doing that since 2008. And I've visited the West Bank and Gaza Strip to research companies profiting from the occupation. But I just wanted to talk about a time earlier than that, really, and to talk a little bit about the context, the immediate context of the call for boycott, divestment and sanctions, and my personal experience of that. So I first visited the West Bank and Gaza in the late 90s, and I came back at the beginning of the Palestinian uprising, the second Palestinian Intifada, in 2002. And in 2002, Israel was engaged in an attack on everybody in the West Bank and Gaza. And one of the aims of that attack was the destruction of the Palestinian Authority as it existed then, through the destruction of government buildings, the besieging of government buildings, assassinations, and the recreation of the Palestinian Authority as a more compliant, client caretaker ruler of a subjugated Palestinian population, which would carry out the wishes of Israel and its allies. And in the context of that, Israel was building the apartheid wall, a wall planned to be 700 kilometres long, to use 3 million cubic metres of barbed wire, a barrier of concrete and steel. And to do that, they were bulldozing houses, and I watched as olive groves were chainsawed to make way for the apartheid wall, as Palestinian farmers were separated from their farmland, people were separated from their relatives, and lands on which Israeli settlements were situated or were going to be built was annexed to the Israeli side of the wall. And I participated in demonstrations with Palestinians and their Israeli and international supporters where we tore down the wall and we were met by tear gas and bullets repeatedly. And in that context, in 2004, Palestinians brought a case to the International Court of Justice, asking for the Court of Justice to make a ruling on the wall. And the court ruled that Israel's occupation was illegal, and that the wall itself that Israel was building was illegal, and that companies, states, politicians should not render assistance to the building of the wall. And what happened as a result of this historic legal ruling? How did the situation change as a result? Well, it didn't change. Absolutely nothing happened as a result of this ruling. And because of this, in 2005, hundreds of Palestinian civil society organisations, trade unions, popular committees, women's groups made a call for boycott, divestment and sanctions. And that call recognised that freedom for the oppressed people of Palestine would not come through the actions of politicians and representatives. It would come through the struggle of the oppressed people of Palestine, along with a worldwide solidarity movement. Initiatives against Israel, similar to those applied to South Africa in the apartheid era. We appeal to you to pressure your respective states to impose embargoes and sanctions against Israel. We also invite conscientious Israelis to support this call for the sake of justice and genuine peace. The demands of the BDS call are the ending of Israel's occupation and colonisation of all Arab land occupied in June 1967, the dismantling of the apartheid wall, an end to Israel's economic blockade of the Gaza Strip, the recognition of the fundamental rights of Arab Palestinian citizens of Israel to full equality, and to respect and promote the rights of Palestinian refugees to return to their homes and properties. The strategy which is laid out in the call is a boycott of Israeli goods, of all Israeli goods, a boycott of Israeli companies, a boycott of international companies that profit from Israeli apartheid, colonisation and militarism, a boycott of Israeli cultural, sporting and academic institutions, and a call for artists not to play in Israel. A campaign for divestment from companies complicit in the denial of rights to Palestinians. A campaign putting pressure on investors like pension funds, university investment portfolios not to finance such companies. A campaign for sanctions. A campaign for Israel to lose its membership in organisations such as the OECD, and a campaign against Israel's agreements such as the EU-Israel Association Agreement, its membership of international bodies, and a call for a military embargo. And that call for a military embargo is a call for a two-way military embargo of Israel. So a call for the end to all sales of weapons to Israel, and a call for companies and states not to do business with Israeli military companies, in recognition that by doing business with these companies, that business would strengthen the Israeli war machine. In 2007, the Boycott National Committee was set up in Palestine as a Palestinian organisation aimed at giving guidance and support to the global solidarity movement, the global boycott, divestment and sanctions movement. The BDS campaign is aimed at Israeli state institutions and Israeli capitalism. It does not aim to punish the Israeli people. The pressure placed on the Israeli state by the BDS movement amplifies dissident voices within Israel, amplifies the criticism of Israeli militarism, of the occupation, of apartheid, of racism within Israel. Boycott from within a group of Israeli citizens has been set up to support the international BDS campaign. And the BDS campaign is complemented by the struggle of Palestinians inside Palestine. For instance, the popular struggle of demonstrations against the apartheid wall, demonstrations against the settlements, the steadfastness that we heard about earlier of Palestinians refusing to leave their homes. For instance, Palestinians refusing to leave their homes in the Jordan Valley, which the Israeli state wants to annex to the state of Israel. The steadfastness of fisher folk in Gaza who assert their right to fish on the seas of Gaza, despite attacks constantly by the Israeli military. The BDS movement is meant to complement and be part of their struggle. Since 2005, the global BDS campaign has achieved more than many people involved in its inception ever hoped. For example, the campaign for a boycott of Israeli agricultural export companies has become a serious challenge to Israel's ability to export products from land ethnically cleansed of Palestinians. In 2013, 21 settlements in the Jordan Valley area reported that their export-related income from exporting agricultural products had dropped by 14%, largely as a result of European supermarkets, particularly in the UK, refusing to source products from them. In 2011, after a worldwide campaign, the Israeli national exporter of fresh produce, Carmen Agretzko, was liquidated. The Israeli economist Shir Hever stated that the BDS campaign was a factor in its demise. Campaigners had launched a global campaign against supermarkets buying from Agretzko, with many successes from the UK to South Africa. Blockades of many of Agretzko's depots had happened across Europe, and a campaign had been waged against the company's transport of goods by sea, including pickets of Israeli goods being unloaded from ships. I interviewed Palestinian workers on Israeli settlements as part of the Corporate Watch research team on their view of the campaign against Carmen Agretzko. And the message that me and the team had from these workers was overwhelming. That they supported the BDS campaign, they supported the boycott of Israeli goods, even if the campaign damaged their employers, even if it meant that they lost their jobs. And one worker summed up how they felt by saying, "Our freedom is more important than a wage." Investors have been pressured to divest millions of pounds from companies complicit in Israeli colonialism, militarism and apartheid. This year, the PGGM fund divested from 5 Israeli banks because of their involvement in funding Israeli settlements. Hundreds of artists, musicians have answered the BDS call after pressure from grassroots activists, people writing to them, and cancelled tours in Israel. These artists include Roger Waters, Snoop Dogg, the Pixies, Gil Scott-Heron, Carlos Santana, Elvis Costello. Companies profiting from lucrative government public service contracts, such as G4S, who provide services to the Israeli prison service, and Veolia, who, amongst other things, are building the Jerusalem Light Railway on occupied Palestinian territory, have lost billions of pounds worth of public service contracts after campaigns were waged highlighting their role in supporting the occupation. And those campaigns were by local groups who found out that their local authorities, through freedom of information requests, found out that their local authorities were contracting to G4S or Veolia, and waged campaigns locally, persuading their local authorities not to choose them as a tenderer for these public service contracts. In 2006, during the Israeli attack on Lebanon, activists in Derry broke into the Raytheon factory and destroyed the computers to stop Raytheon being able to enable the sale of weapons to Israel. In 2009, campaigners broke into the Edo NBM Excelis factory in Brighton and destroyed the production line and all of the computers in the offices to prevent the company being involved in the supply of weapons to Israel. All of those campaigners, including myself, were brought to court, and we were found not guilty by juries because we had acted to prevent war crimes. Israeli companies with assets in the settlement, SodaStream and Ahava, have been forced to close down their shops as a result of public direct action campaigns. A campaign I was involved in Brighton lasted for almost 2 years against the EcoStream shop which SodaStream had opened on our high street. And demonstrations were held every week outside the store, acts of direct action, people locking themselves to the doors of the shop to prevent it from opening were held. Thousands of leaflets were handed out every week to members of the public going past. This campaign seriously affected SodaStream's ability to make a profit in Brighton, and earlier this year they announced that they wouldn't be renewing the lease on their shop, and the shop was closed down. So I wanted to talk about some key areas where I think that campaigners could work on BDS issues from now. And one area, I think, in the context of this murderous attack on Gaza, which has happened this summer, campaigners must look more seriously targeting the military companies and their investors involved in supplying weapons to Israel and the Israeli companies that are supplying weapons to for instance, the British government. In this country, the largest Israeli military company, Elbit, is involved in a joint contract to manufacture the new British drone, which is already, some of them have already been manufactured and are in use in Afghanistan. Elbit will be continuing to make money out of providing services for the upkeep of the Watchkeeper drone. The call from Palestine is clear, not to allow companies like Elbit to profit from the crimes that they've committed against people in Gaza, and not to allow them to sell their weapons abroad. And I think the British movement needs to look at very carefully beginning to target these companies. During the attack on Gaza, 9 campaigners occupied the roof of Elbit, who have a factory called UAV Engines, which is in Shenstone and close to Birmingham, and they stayed on the roof for 2 days. The factory was forced to close down during the attack, during those 2 days. Last week, me and some other people in this room were at a demonstration at the Elbit factory in Shenstone, and I think that these demonstrations should signal a new resolve to target the companies involved in, the Israeli companies involved in supplying the drones which are being used to attack Gaza, challenge their ability to operate in the UK. If you can't make it up to Shenstone, and also Elbit have a factory in Manchester as well, Forensic Technologies. If you can't make it up to their factories, one of the largest institutional investors in Elbit is Barclays Bank. Barclays invest their customers' money and use their own money to hedge with shares in the company. And there's been a campaign which has gathered momentum this summer to force Barclays to pull their money out of Elbit. There was a successful campaign which many people will remember against Barclays in the context of South African apartheid, and as a result of people pulling their money out of the bank, Barclays were forced to pull out of their investments in South Africa. This is a particularly important area for students to focus on, because Barclays' business model is to tie students into their accounts while they're studying. So it's a really important place to make links with students. It's a really important place for students to campaign. Another campaign I wanted to talk about was a Sainsbury's campaign. Now, a few years ago we had a success in the UK with the Co-op supermarket. Now, obviously we want a boycott of all Israeli goods, but the best position we have from a supermarket so far in the UK is that the Co-op does not source produce from companies which operate in the Israeli settlements. So companies like Mahadrin, Gretzko, Adon, the Co-op will not buy their products. And there's been a campaign for around a year and a half now to try to get Sainsbury's to adopt a similar position to the Co-op. There are flyers on the table out there giving information about this campaign. There are calls for demonstrations every month on the first week of every month, and there will be a large mobilisation against the Sainsbury's AGM next year. So that's the campaign, I think, to get involved in. And also, I'd like to talk about campaigns against the companies that are profiting from the Israeli prison system. As I mentioned before, G4S provides services to the Israeli prison system, as do Hewlett-Packard, who provide IT services. I've been involved in interviewing prisoners in the West Bank and Gaza about their times in Israeli prison. Palestinians from both the West Bank and Gaza are arrested at their homes and are brought inside the 1948 borders of Israel to spend time in prison. Torture is widespread. The detention and torture of children is widespread. And there's a call from Palestinian prisoners to target the companies involved with supporting the Israeli prison service. And those companies are HP, G4S. So find out if G4S is tendering for public service contracts in your area, and if they are, wage a campaign against them. And don't buy goods from Hewlett-Packard, raise awareness of the consumer boycott against Hewlett-Packard products. Those are just a few of the campaigns that I think we should be focusing on right now.
And refuse to have your gas meter read by G4S.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, so I visited Gaza last year as part of Corporate Watch's research team, and while we were there, we were overwhelmed by the support for the BDS movement that there was in Gaza, and the excitement that people in Gaza had at the prospect of hearing from BDS campaigners. They really wanted to hear what we've been doing outside Gaza in solidarity with them. And we had invitations from universities, schools, youth groups, political groups, refugee committees, all across the Gaza Strip. We had so many invitations that we couldn't accept them all. And I just wanted to play you a few minutes of a video which encapsulates what the BDS movement means to one student activist living under siege in the Gaza Strip. She's an activist who can't get out right now of the Gaza Strip, so I just wanted to hear her voice.
I'm a BDS activist. I started working on the BDS issues since the first war on Gaza, which I witnessed, which was in 2008-2009. It was a very horrible experience for me and also for other people here, as I'm sure you have read and you have spoke to people who witnessed this war. So it affected me personally very much. When I was a student in my last year, and I had that feeling during the 20 days of such continuous bombing and killing of people all around me and my building, my place, that I'm really very, very powerless, that I can't do anything. And I'm just waiting for my fate to be killed, or even to hear that my father or my mother or my brother or sister is the next victim. So I had that feeling that I really want to be an agent who really can make change, or who can even help in making change, or even to feel that I'm really powerful. So after the end of this war, a group of students, me and other colleagues, heard about it was for me for the first time to hear about the BDS call. So we tried to organize a committee which is called SCABI, Palestinian Student Campaign for the Academic Boycott of Israel. And we started to meet. The number at first was very, very small. We were around 4. And then the number has been increasing very, very quickly. We started, and until now, we are all volunteers. We are short in terms of resources, but we always try to work and to get in touch with other activists, BDS activists all around the world. So when we were students, we used to be in touch with some students from the UK, especially from the UK and from South Africa. And we used to exchange letters and video talks with them through Skype. Then we began to develop many activities here in Gaza to talk more about the BDS in the universities, to people in the street, to supermarkets, to civil society organizations. And actually, I think we have succeeded so far, because now the number of people who are really feeling that the boycott is an effective tool is really increasing. We did the Israeli Apartheid Week since 2009, and I remember the number was very few in comparing it with last year. So I think it's a very positive tool, the BDS is a very positive tool, and it makes us feel that we are really powerful and that we are not left alone. Now,
just to round up, I'll be involved in the workshops later, so if people want to talk about particular BDS campaigns, not just the BDS campaigns that I've mentioned, but any other ideas that people have, then come along to one of my workshops. I was listening this week to a talk by Noam Chomsky about Palestine, and he said that many of the world's problems seem so intractable that it seems impossible even to begin to find a solution. And the Israel-Palestine conflict isn't one of them. And that's right. The solution is simple. There needs to be an end to Israel's racist colonialist policies. The BDS movement allows us to struggle toward that end by severing international support and collaboration with Israeli apartheid. This is not a message from me. On my trips to the occupied Palestinian territories over the last 15 years, countless Palestinians have asked me to convey this message, a message to everyone in this room to join their struggle. The end of Israeli apartheid, militarism and occupation will not be achieved, as I said before, by the actions of politicians or representatives. It is being demanded and will be won by the oppressed people of Palestine in a joint struggle with the global solidarity movement, in which we can all play a part. The BDS movement allows people to take effective action wherever they are, in solidarity with the Palestinians. It has the potential to bring the Palestinian struggle to the doorsteps of those who profit from Israeli apartheid on a global scale. So we have a lot of work to do.